How do you engage a bunch of kids that don't give a damn about what you're talking about and probably don't think they're ever going to need that in their lives? How do you rally, like get those kids to rally behind you and teach them? That's what makes a truly special teacher.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on here and just sharing some time today.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have a good conversation about some sports. We're rambling on about teachers, but good conversation is good conversation nonetheless. What's going on, everybody? My name is Levi, and I am the creator and host of the Talk Smack with Mac podcast, a show where I dive deep in the world of sports, music, and life. I talk a lot of sports, a lot of MMA, a lot of basketball, a lot of football, and I also like to talk about music. I'm a like a hip hop uh, uh, lover, I guess, for lack of better terms. But yeah, I enjoy a really good conversation, man. And I think you guys should check me out. I'm always talking the best shit when it comes to sports. And when you watch this episode, you're going to get a little taste of that. So stay tuned.
So, how did you get into the world of sports? Was it from an early age?
Yes, early age. So my god family had a lot of athletes in my god family, and I was not an athlete whatsoever as a kid. I had really bad asthma. I couldn't get up and run, anything like that. So I watched from a distance, and I grew a love for basketball. I grew a love for football. MMA and boxing in particular came much later, but basketball and football just had extreme passion from a young age. So I just kept watching it. I would watch ESPN on loops. Say if I missed a day from school, I wasn't a kid that watched, cartoons sometimes, but most of the time it was ESPN on a loop, cold pizza and Jim Rome is burning and stuff like that, PTI, all the good stuff. And I really when I was younger, I was very diverse. I watched baseball, golf, tennis, I kept up on all of it. So I love sports. I love competing.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you mention those shows because that's kind of the same shows that I grew up in. Whenever I would get up in the morning, if I was lucky enough, I would get kind of control of the TV for a few minutes while I was eating breakfast and turn on and watch like the top 10. That was a cool thing to get to do. And
Yes,
so did you ever play sport, like get into sports like athletics deep?
I did. Around 13, I played basketball when I was younger. I was good. I was talented. You could ask about me. I had a really good shot, right? I just never had the wind behind me. I played football. I played football in high school a little bit. And then I started boxing when I was 15, and I just fell in love with boxing. It came natural to me. I don't know what it was. Nothing really came natural to me, and that was my thing. So I really loved it. And I was trying to impress the girl a little bit, so that put the lit the fire underneath me to really get after it. And I boxed for a couple years, and then after that, that kind of was like the start of my athletic life that really grows deep. I still like to push myself very hard to this day. I just did a 10K Spartan race, I think about a month ago. So I'm really diving deep into this fitness journey of mine.
So it kind of goes past just even your traditional sports you grew up with. You like to do kind of any athletic event, kind of trying it out.
Yes. So after high school, I joined the army, and I went to deep sea dive school. Those were some of the best athletes I've ever met in my life. There were some ridiculous guys in there, but it was different. It was swimming and treading water and stuff that I did for fun, but I never took it seriously. Now it was a whole different ball game. So I kind of got a brand new aspect of that fitness life. So I learned about like water polo, and I started learning about track and field because we were running a lot. So I really became a lot more diverse, and it got a lot more competitive. Every day was competition amongst each other just to survive dive school. And then we were doing like Spartan races, type things in dive school, and I just fell in love with competing. I'm absolutely addicted to competition.
And were there any like recreational sports you did while you were in the military?
Like flag football, and we did competitions in there. We flag football, we did basketball for fun, but very, very like randomly. We none of us were really too good at the time. We did like some tug of war, stuff like that.
So as a younger kid, did you see yourself kind of doing what you're doing now, like talking about it a lot? I'm sure like at least being interested in it. I know like for myself, when you go to school and you start talking to your friends about the game last night, or, it's playoff time, you start talking about who's going to win the series, whatever. Like, did that happen a lot with you as well?
It was weird. So I was obsessed with sports. My mom would say, I could see you talking about it. And as a kid, I felt like disrespected a little bit because I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to do it. I'm 5'9", 165 pounds. I'm not playing football or anything. So no, I never thought I would talk about it. I never thought that was possible. I guess the mindset that we had growing up, there wasn't really a lot of variety of what you could do, like especially talking about sports for a living. Back in the early 2000s, that didn't seem possible to me.
Yeah.
But it it's interesting now. I'm very, very lucky, very blessed, and very happy that I can do it.
I think in so many different areas, especially there's so many more possibilities now than you even thought were out there before. It's with social media, with podcasting, with starting your YouTube channels, doing whatever it is. There's like people have this ability now to take what they love and do something with it.
Yes, like you hit the nail on the head. Social media has expanded everybody's reach. We weren't able to dip into the pots, 10 or 15, 20 years ago that we can today. It's very easy if you have just a little bit of creativity. Almost anything is a Google search away or a YouTube video away. So, we're very fortunate to be able to kind of dabble with the possibilities that are given to us now.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have these platforms now that even back in our childhood, we would look at and be like, you have to know somebody, or you have to, go to school for that. You have to do all these things. You have to be given that opportunity. Now it's like you might be able to start a podcast for a couple $100. You just, instead of needing, thousands and thousands of dollars and people behind you and a crew, and you just get to do these things now. It's really mind blowing, and getting to talk to different people is kind of another cool aspect. Like just me talking to you talking to me, never would have happened. We never would have met each other. And I can talk to people, and you can talk to people from all over the world, and even maybe have talk to a celebrity or talk to somebody that you looked up to as a kid. It's just such a cool world now.
Yeah, it is pretty damn cool. I remember, or I'll give you a specific example of what happened to me. So, MTV. Have you
Yeah,
ever seen the show The Challenge that's on MTV?
maybe. What's the premise?
They get a bunch of people from like the real world. They come into a house and they compete and do challenges and they compete for money.
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so that's my shit. I really like that show and I've watched it as a kid. All right, so when I started the podcast, I started reaching out to people on the show trying to get one of them to come on. One of the girls that I had a big crush on for, I'm talking about a decade, was the one person that actually liked my message and hit me back. So I was like, man, this is pretty damn cool. Let me see who else I can talk to. So that was just a very, very surreal moment for me, and it happened so early on. I was like, holy shit, what's going to happen when I actually have, some people following me?
It's cool because like what 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 is it about? In my head, I think, why did that person respond? Why, what is it in them that makes them want to talk to somebody they've never met? They look at me, especially if it's like a celebrity or somebody who has a little recognition to them. It's like, why me? They probably get
Hmm.
a million things a day, or have opportunities to do all these things, and they choose to talk to me about something. It's really like, in my head, it makes me kind of like wonder about that person, like what kind of person they really are. It seems like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Because Looking at my profile picture, I'm not standing out amongst my peers whatsoever. So that is a good question. Why me?
So, kind of getting back to sports, what do you or do you know like what it is or was about sports that really just attracts you to them? Maybe from both the level of like watching them and playing them.
Competition. So playing them, I'll get out and I'll try my best in almost anything. I absolutely love playing tennis. I didn't know that. I've only played it a handful of times, and it's a blast. Just a competition, and not always with other people. Competition amongst myself. Can I do this? Let's see if I can do it. This is fun. Let's see how good I could get, and then let me see if I can kick some people's ass. So competition is always there, and then I also like the chess aspect of most competitive sports. So you take boxing for an example. Counter punchers, they sit there and they're waiting for you to throw a punch for them to make a move and then counter back. It's like chess. You sit back, okay, I'm waiting for you to make this move so I can move into this piece or a place and take your king. I like that. I like the mental competition in sports. Football, same things. If a quarterback is sitting there in a shotgun position and he sees the slot corner creeping up, it could be a corner blitz. If it's a weak side corner blitz, I'm gonna drop it off to the running back in the who's swinging around or running a flat. It's always chess games, and you could watch it in almost any sport. It's absolutely beautiful.
So do you think that you have more of a love for playing or watching or thinking about like one-on-one sports or like team sports more?
I like both.
So not really either one stands out.
If I'm watching, I like team sports more. If I'm doing, I like to be by myself.
Yeah.
Not because I can't rely on people or anything like that, but I could push myself to my limit. I can't make other people push themselves to their limit. So if I'm doing it, if I have a bunch of guys that are just like hungry and getting after it and making me look bad, it's going to make me want to work more. But if you have a bunch of people around that doesn't really want to do shit, it's going to be frustrating and get me off focus. So if I'm going to do it, let me box or do some type of MMA. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most challenging aspects of sports or of anything really when like you're all into it and it's important to you and it should be important to somebody else on your team, but they're just like not as dedicated or not as willing. I think
Hmm.
that's like one of the most frustrating things,
Yeah,
when
because it's
especially as
like
a
why
competitive. Yeah, as a
why are you
competitive
why are you
person.
here?
Like in rec sports, I think that's when you see like some fights go down. Sometimes is when like there's like that one or two people who's like super serious about it, and then everybody or there's like varying levels I think in like rec sports, but then there's like those other people who are just like throwing granny shots up and like not playing defense, and then you get in fist fights because the other person's like locked down D and setting screens and everything. It's just I think it's really interesting when you take it down to like a level to where anybody can play and also like everybody will play.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what, folks? If you're at 24-hour fitness playing for fun on a Tuesday night, don't get mad because guy isn't calling out screens and fucking, you're not playing the greatest defense in the world. It's not that serious. There's a difference. Like you said, if there's a guy that's throwing up granny shots and not playing defense, get the fuck out the game. But if a guy is trying his best, I will never ever complain.
Yeah. So going to your boxing, like how far did you take that?
I didn't have any actually documented fights. I was on the verge, and then life took its course, and I never got the chance to. And then when I joined the military, I was going to try to pursue boxing in the military. Ended up having shoulder surgery, so that put me back at like 4 years to actually get my shoulder back. Um, but I never stopped training every time I could, throughout my military career from when I started to now. And actually, right now, I'm the best I've ever been. I train a lot right now. That's why I was running a couple minutes late. I just got finished training. I have buddies come over to my house and we spar and hit the pads. Now, Can I be a professional fighter? No, I'm not disrespecting those guys. All of those guys that actually go out there and do this shit seriously, they're different.
Yeah.
They're warriors. I'd like to train and stay in shape, keep my hands ready, prepare myself as if I were to do that. But no, I'm just clarifying so nobody hit up TalkSmackWithMac and say, "Hey man, this dude said he'll kick your ass." No.
Yeah, you're gonna start a beef out there or something.
Yeah, right. Man, TalkSmackWithMac will say he'll kick all our podcaster ass. We're gonna go out there and jump him.
There ought to be like a bracket out there with like who could beat up who with the podcasters.
Yeah, all podcasters in Las Vegas is where I'm from. We're gonna start a bracket. We're all just gonna spar and kick each other's ass.
I think that'd be you could probably pull in some sponsors for that. You could make some money off that.
Hey, that would be pretty cool.
That'd be
Stay
funny.
tuned. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay.
Las Vegas podcasters getting
There you
together
go.
and kicking each other's ass. I think people would love it. You're right.
And then even if you get knocked out, you could still like be on the sidelines commentating.
If I get knocked out, I'm not posting that shit.
But it's gonna go. It's gonna go. So might as well post it yourself.
Yeah, right.
So kind of getting into that though, like how did you and like what made you start your podcast and when did you start it?
So towards the tail end of my military career, I always talked good shit when it came to sports. Everybody liked my opinion, and I always knew I talked good shit. As I grew my confidence with time, I started talking more and more shit. And a few of my buddies in the military, were like, man, you should start a podcast. Talk about sports on the podcast. And at that moment, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Then a little bit of time went by, and I was like, man, I want to do this. And I remember June of 2019. I text my cousin and I say, hey, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a podcast. And it had to be the right moment, right setup. And it took me almost a year from that moment to get started. But now I'm almost a year into it. I'm loving it. It's going great. The growth is there, and I'm absolutely loving it.
So do you think that like most of your not just your podcasting stuff, but anything you talk about sports, do you think that's mostly like intuition, or do you think that's like seeing stats and then being able to interpret that? Like where do you think most of that comes from?
As far as like my knowledge or what I talk about.
Yeah, just like your opinions, or like when you discuss something with somebody, is it like is there a lot of I guess like numbers thrown in, or is it mostly just like no, I know, like from just having a feeling about it?
I'm gonna hit you with the 50-50. I'm gonna throw numbers at you, and my numbers will be accurate. And I'm gonna throw different numbers at you. None of this weird analytics. This guy was the first person that shot 37% from the 3-point line for 37 days. None of that weird shit. But a lot of my knowledge comes from, as far as basketball and football, is that I watch. I watched from 2001, at least 50 Laker games every single year, minimum. And that's being generous. It was probably more like 65. Every nationally televised game and every home game, I was watching the Lakers. Football, I was watching football, all the games. Every Sunday at 10 o'clock in Las Vegas, games hit, I'm watching them. So I've been watching for 2 decades, so I understand it. And that's a big thing. I understand the sports. I understand the rules. I understand schemes. I understand shit like that, how the game is supposed to be played. I'm maybe not a wizard at it, but I have a good understanding. That's where my opinion could come in strong, because I have an understanding. I've been watching for a long time, and I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah. I don't think if someone has a passion for it necessarily, it's going to stick. Like, I don't think you can just wake up one day and be like, oh, I want to talk about, or I want to become a fan of this. I think it really has to kind of, in some way at least, like come from something within you.
I 100% agree with you. You got to have some type of natural, like, connection, I guess, with whatever you're talking about. If you really want to be truly passionate about it, you always fake it till you make it. And some people are really good at that, but I feel like most of the time there is passion behind it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you'll see not necessarily that like the bigger things, the bigger sports commentating things and sport shows out there are, they're not as interested or invested in sports themselves. But I feel like there's a level of, with the smaller podcast, with the smaller production, there's a level of like genuine, like love, genuine care. You can actually maybe have a conversation because it's not just about the commercial and, selling ads and all that stuff. I think it's just a whole different experience when you're working with a podcast or working something a little bit smaller.
It's genuine. I feel like it's very genuine. You could be yourself and you could really get true answers to questions that maybe a lot of people have. You could, like for me as a fan, when I've had a few UFC fighters on here. There's things that I really wanted to know, and I could ask that person, face to face virtually, but face to face and get a genuine answer. And I think it's pretty cool. Like for instance, I asked leg kick. Can you imagine getting whipped with a just a strong whipping leg kick right in your calf? Bam. Oh, dude, how are you walking right now? And that goes back to faking it till you make it.
Yeah. So do you have a specific or like a favorite sport that you like to talk about the most? Or maybe you feel comfortable talking about the most?
I kill people in basketball, man. Basketball and football. My MMA knowledge is jumping up a lot more. I've always been an MMA fan, but I've really been diving deep into MMA. I got UFC Fight Pass, man. It's a badass app. They literally have almost every fight of everybody. So once we got that, I said, okay, let me go back and watch all of these legends, all of their fights. Let me watch all of Anderson Silva, all of Chuck Liddell, all of Tito Ortiz, and in the last year, my say I've watched like a cumulative 50 fights for my before this previous year. Sorry for the confusion, but in the last year, I've probably watched 300 fights. So I'm getting that knowledge and terminology and understanding of you know um, the different martial arts. I got a long ways to go, but I'm trying. I really enjoy watching it and learning it.
So when you first started your podcast or just doing, talking, was it but was there any like apprehension from like, oh, I don't want people to hear me say something and then it be twisted, or like I might be wrong or somebody opinion, like was there any of that when you first started?
Probably subconsciously. We can't be perfect all the times. When we have a job, when we're talking for a living, we're gonna say some shit where we're like, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or oh, I definitely said that wrong when I listened back to it. And come on, people, we're humans. We're gonna make mistakes. Definitely got to be a little cognizant of what you're saying. It's tough.
So you mentioned you watch the Lakers a ton. Do you get into college basketball or college sports as much as pro?
Not as much. College football this past season, my interest was non-existent. I don't think I watched any games. It's going to be hard to really analyze this draft coming up because I did watch. When they took college football, the video game NCAA away, I was like, all right, my knowledge is going to drop a little bit because I was playing with shitty teams, finding great players, and then would watch those guys on TV and say, oh shit, they're actually pretty good. And that's how I was learning people. Video games, they're pretty handy. But I go through spurts. Like the first time I started watching college basketball, my favorite college basketball ever, and a lot of people are gonna be like, "What?" JJ Redick. When JJ Redick was playing, man, every single game was must watch because he was chucking threes from everywhere and he was splashing them. It was absolutely so much fun to watch. And then Anthony Davis. I was watching Anthony Davis blocking people from the 3-point line, from the
Yeah.
him standing at the free throw line blocking people.
That was a good
So,
time here in Kentucky.
oh, you're in Kentucky. All right, so
Yeah.
very familiar. So I go through spurts of certain players that are just so great that I have to watch them.
Yeah.
But definitely like a 99-1 split of pro versus college.
That's interesting. I definitely grew up here in Kentucky. There's not like any there's no professional teams. You got a few that are close, but none of them are really that great. But but yeah, college, I would feel like when I was growing up, it was more college, college basketball, college football, NFL a little bit maybe, but call it like NBA. Really, for me growing up, it was more just like, okay, playoffs get here, and then you kind of get interested. I really can't remember even before, like, probably when I was in college, I really started just watching regular season NBA, and I've had a pretty good like grip on it because, like you said, video games definitely put you into the world a whole lot more. Just playing NBA Live and 2K, the
2K.
2Ks, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then yeah, when you said college football, man, when they stopped making those, that was like that crushed me because that was like my
Yeah.
favorite my
It's
favorite
so
video
so much
game.
fun. Pay these damn kids.
Yeah,
Give them $500.
especially as a college football fan, and like, you get to play with these like no name people, and then you like go in and change the thing so it says their name on it, and like it's such almost like an experience of like a knockoff video game, but it's still so good. It's like it's just as good.
Because it's so in depth. There's so many college teams, Division One, two, three, all these different things. So they have to put so much into it, and then there's recruiting, and then all types of crazy stuff. So NCAA was one hell of a game, man. I'm glad they're bringing it back. I think we have like a couple years to wait.
Yeah, I remember when they were talking about bringing it back, and then it would get squashed, and they talk about it. It's like, oh gosh. And then from being from Louisville, like having Lamar Jackson, I can't imagine being able to play with him in college would be so fun. Would have been,
Game
oh
over.
yeah.
Imagine running a speed option or a power option with him.
I mean,
Oh man,
back in the day, like with Vince Young, you thought that was fun, or somebody like that. But man, I've been
Vince Young was destroying everybody because he was like a good Tim Tebow with a great arm. Maybe not a
yeah,
great arm, but a pretty good arm.
yeah. I mean, I think I remember him. Didn't he have like I don't even know if this is impressive, but I feel like it is just because I remember it. They do that like run and throw test, and he threw it like 80 yards or something. Like on, I'm,
I don't remember, but I know. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. But
yeah, it seems
I
like it.
also know Jamarcus Russell was throwing 65 yards from his knees.
Yeah, doesn't always equate to
Yeah,
greatness.
yeah, that doesn't show your work ethic. Jamarcus Russell,
Man,
bad boy.
there's so many people you'd be like, what they could have been, or like, give me that talent for, give me that
That's
talent. Let me see what
that's
I
why
can
they
do.
that's why they put that rookie wage scale on into effect. They gave Jamarcus Russell like $50 million guaranteed. He was like, shit.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go out there and get banged up and have these big ass dudes tackle me. I'm gonna give my $50 million and move on.
yeah. I
They
mean,
said, "Oh
smart
shit,
move, I guess, a little bit, but
yeah, man. If he got out there brain intact and he invested in some shit,
yeah, yeah,
that's
true
pretty
that.
wild. He just gave that to like a 22, 23-year-old kid. He was like, yeah, fuck this, I'm out."
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting thing when you see these kids, even if they come from decent backgrounds, just giving them that much money is to me is just mind blowing. Like, I think
Yeah,
whenever you're younger, you don't think about it, but whenever you get to that age where you're watching a draft and you're like, that could be me, or I think even weirder when you get past that age and you're thinking, this kid is 18 to 22 or 23, and I'm sitting here at 25, and it's something that I never thought about as a kid.
yeah, yeah. No, it is. It's the level of responsibility that's thrown into your lap too, and you could even take that to the next level and say, okay, a kid in poverty in 2003, best basketball player ever. He went from being a poor ass kid in high school to making millions of dollars in a span of 8 months. That's ridiculous. And you expect this kid not to go out and just buy everybody everything and just say, oh shit, yes. I
Yeah,
ate top ramen for 26 days straight. Of course I'm about to go spend some money. That's why I shout out to the NFLPA and probably the NBA, Players Association as well. They implement those, rookie seminars to kind of teach these kids where to spend their money, how to spend their money, how to save. It's important.
yeah, I think it is. It's really because it's life. It's not just life changing, but it's like family changing. It changes a whole family's future.
Yeah, generations.
Yeah,
Now you just change your generation. whatever it may be. Say, for instance, you come from generations of just being poor. Now, bam, you got hit, Jamarcus Russell, $50 million. You change yours, the next one, maybe even the next one if you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind
And
of
then
money
they're just
is,
adding to it.
yeah, that's crazy. But so kind of on that same line of thought, like, how do you feel about the switch up between high school to pro to having to go to college? Do you think that they should, like, do you think that should be a rule to where you have to go to college, or do you think, or not necessarily go to college, but wait a year? Do you think that they should just go
I
back
don't
to the
like
way it
that.
was?
Yeah, I don't like that. And actually, in my opinion, if you're gonna go to college, make them go at least like 2 or 3 years. So,
Yeah.
but that goes back to paying these kids. Give them a little bit of money, make them want to go to college.
Yeah.
Because say back to the best basketball player, everything coming out of high school goes to the pros, and he tears his Achilles. 19, 18 years old, tears his Achilles. He doesn't really have anything to do. He doesn't recover well. He didn't get the college education. And now, not only is he mentally in a rut because he can never play the sport again, he's broke as hell. You gotta educate these kids, man. Either let them go straight to the league and let them figure it out, or let them go to college and make sure they get their education.
Yeah. Kind of getting into athletes these days. I feel like athletes are so much different now, even just 10 years ago, and then from 10 years ago, maybe even more different 10 years ago, like 2010s to the early 2000s. Like, how do you think, or why do you think that's changing so much? I definitely think it's become not less competitive, but like less, it's become more of a, like a friendly environment than it used to be. Do you think that's a good thing, or you think that's a bad thing?
Give and take. We don't want, I personally don't want to see anybody actually get hurt purposely. But at the same time, give me that fire. Give me that burning desire. Show me how bad you want it. Don't high five these guys after the game. These are the enemies at the time. At that moment, you need to take advantage and strike. We are not friends right now. I'm here to take your head off in whatever aspect that may be in terms of whatever sport they're playing. But yeah, man, give me some competition. Now, if you could balance being cool and competing at the highest level, but I personally like the let's use basketball. That chippiness, pushing people around. This is my house. You have to earn this. And like you're saying now, there's that flair isn't ignited in a lot of people, and I feel like that maybe comes to social media as well. We're putting a highlight on certain things. If saying the NBA, like in the 80s, they were fist fighting all the time. If they have that now and you have the social media blowing it up, it's going to be a very bad look for the NBA. So they implement rules that kind of lower the violence. So I think rule change and spotlight and pressure and media scrutinizing probably plays a big part too.
And I think part of that
Oh,
goes to like,
money. My bad. Money too.
oh, well, yeah. I think a big part though goes to like seeing these, and I hate to even say it because it's like such a drawn out topic, but like seeing super teams come together, like I feel like there's no more like allegiance to a team. It's more like even myself, I feel like I don't have that allegiance anymore to a specific team. It's like I like players, and then wherever they go, I just become a fan of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think like that's a good thing? Do you think that, because I feel like as a whole, the NBA could potentially benefit from that, because it's not like, okay, the Lakers and the Celtics are going to be good forever. It gives a chance for like Minnesota to be good, or, because it's not like, I don't think people like athletes going in now care as much about the legacy, but in the same time, I think legacy is still like important and interesting.
Yeah, I see where you're saying, but I feel like back in the day, players didn't really have a say so. You sign a contract, you're basically like the owners are like, you're mine, and so this contract is done. I don't like the super team. Now I am a Lakers fan. We have a super team right now. Shit, I'll take it, but I watched this suck. I watched this draft Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram,
Oh
Lonzo Ball,
man,
Josh
Kentucky
Hart.
boy.
So I watched this suck for 5 years, get these draft picks, and then make a trade, and then lucked up LeBron came. So
Yeah.
I got lucky.
do you think that power dynamic is switching? Do you think that's like, I mean, I know there's good and bad to it, but do you think that's a good thing? I feel like in a way, I don't think that these players, especially younger ones, maybe your more veteran players do, but I don't think they understand the impact that they have on the sport or on fans or on, just the league as in a whole or as a whole. Do you think that's potentially problematic that that's so much power in the hands of the players?
I don't think so. Because as a competitor, now, mind you, my level of competition is down here compared to professional athletes. But as a competitor, if a bunch of people wanted to team up and make a super team, I'm saying, hey man, I guess I got to take this super team down now.
Yeah.
You better go out and work harder, bust your ass, because I think it's more of an equal playing field in terms of like Milwaukee. That's not a big market city, but they have a really good team. They have 3 max contracts on that team. Milwaukee couldn't do that 20, 30 years ago. So I don't really believe in like the buyout market and small market, big market, benefiting more or less. I feel like it's more of an equal playing ground, especially with social media and endorsements and stuff like that. LA in the 90s, New York in the 90s, that was this big spotlight. Paparazzi was putting people in the media all the time. Now with social media, you could be in North Dakota and you could be the most famous person in the world. So it's more of an equal playing ground. So super teams either take their ass down or ride the wave when you're fortunate enough.
Yeah. And do you think that like a super team, it's such a, I feel like it's such a basketball dynamic because if you look at any like bigger teams like football, baseball, soccer, like teams where there's more people, it's harder to do that. So do you think that there's less of a chance for players to have as much power in those sports because they can't like influence necessarily, like fewer players can't influence if a team's good or not. So then that they can't influence how much money they're bringing into that team potentially. So do you think that like players in basketball are always going to have maybe more power than other sports?
Yes, I do think so. With basketball, you just need 3 guys, really, 3 main guys. Say in football, you have 3 main guys. Who gives a shit? There's 19 other people that have to compete. So it's a lot easier with the smaller team roster sports.
And it's weird because like we think of the super teams and like people moving around and we think of basketball, but and it's interesting because it's not really a football thing, but it's like the Bucks kind of did it this year. They were like, okay, we're gonna form this team. And I know like there was pieces already in there, but you still saw like major pieces being moved and then something really started to happen. So it's I think in that way, maybe potentially it's like the beginning of a new era. Do you think?
I don't think so. If you look at the Buccaneers, I'm a Buccaneers fan. I'm a diehard Buccaneers fan, been for 20 years. And almost that entire defense was drafted. Outside of Sue and JPP we traded for. Sue was a free agent. Almost everybody else was drafted. So if you hit on all your draft picks like that and you go on offense, drafted Chris Godwin, drafted Ronald Jones, drafted Mike Evans, drafted Cameron Brate, drafted OJ Howard, drafted every single player on our line besides our center. If you're hitting in the draft like that, you're going to start winning. You look at all the teams that are successful over the years, they hit on drafts and not just the first round. Their second, third, and fourth round guys are contributors or starters in the NFL.
Do you think though if Brady would have went to the Browns, it would have been a similar? I mean, the Browns too were in there deep, but kind of they're. I feel like the Browns and the Bucks were in a very similar position in a lot of ways, where they had a lot of talent, but not necessarily had that final piece. And I know Brady, like it's football and it's only one player, but I don't know. I just feel like as a quarterback, you in the NFL, I feel like you just have to have a quarterback. So do you do you do you think that that could potentially happen in the NFL where it's like Aaron Rodgers only signs 1 year deal and then he signs another 1 year deal with this team? Do you see that ever like occurring?
I don't think so because of the injury risk in the NFL. You can get injured so easy. So I think people want that guaranteed money. Not all contracts in the NFL are guaranteed. So they're shooting for a long term contract with the most guaranteed. I don't think anybody, because that's what a franchise tag is. People hate that shit. They're like, don't tag me, give me my contract. So I don't think any team would, I mean, any person would ever sign 1 years.
So it feels like basketball maybe has, to me at least, has changed the most out of like the bigger team sports in American sports. But do you feel like, in your opinion, do you think any other sport has changed like a lot over maybe the past 10, 15, 20 years?
Football for sure. The level of physicality, the rule changes, specifically on the quarterback. Can't hit him here, can't hit him there. Oh, you can't chop block, you can't block in the bag, you can't do a lot more rules, changing the kickoff rules. There, people aren't getting destroyed on the kickoffs as much. And then switching, when I first started watching football, it was a run heavy game. Run, pass when you need to. There wasn't a bunch of guys going for 40 plus touchdowns and 4,000, 5,000 yards. You had Tom Brady, you had Peyton Manning. There wasn't really much Brett Favre, but he had like 30 interceptions as well. Jameis Winston-esque. But it has changed in my time of watching from run to everything is pass. Oh, and then also back in the day, when you were passing the ball, you're snapping the ball from under center. It's a lot of pistol, a lot of shotgun now. So the game is more fast paced. We want to see points. Point sells tickets. Tickets make money. So it's changing quick.
Yeah. I think that's one thing with the sports that aren't changing. You see it. Even in the sports where fans complain about the changes, they're growing, and they're at least, they're growing with what you would expect them to grow. But the sports that are making fewer changes are just seem to be falling behind.
Is there a specific sport you're referring to?
Well, baseball, or even a sport that I don't know too much about, honestly, but it seems like it could be popular, is like soccer. Why isn't soccer popular here, other than for the thing of, like you just said, people want to see, people scoring. That's a big thing. But maybe you take your game and you change it up a little bit. I know it kind of, and you're going to have those people who are like diehard fundamentalist about sports, and those are definitely going to be some of the people who might lose. But yeah, just, I don't know. It's there's those sports that seem to be making even controversial changes that also are still the most popular.
Yeah, I feel that. I think to answer your question about soccer, I like playing soccer. I'm not the most knowledgeable guy, but do you think there's any correlation with the level of success our teams in the U.S. has, correlating to popularity? If we had a team that kicked ass every single year, was winning the Olympics, I think that would gauge our level of interest a little bit more. But I think the lacking in that department is kind of killing us.
Yeah, and it's weird to think that we're not doing great just because we have all the resources and all the ability. Like, we have enough people where, in America, you look at these smaller countries, like, Germany has what, less than 100 million people, but they kick out a team that's insane. Or, Spain, or, these countries that aren't nearly as big as America, with as many resources and people. And so I guess we're just potentially not putting the resources in those sports, maybe.
Maybe if you find out, let me know.
But kind of getting into the world of mixed martial arts and stuff. So you said you started really kind of watching it a lot over the last year with the Fight Pass and everything. Do you see, even in the last year, from watching it, like from 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021, like, are you seeing changes there?
UFC specifically they won sports last year. They were putting on shows like a month or two after the shutdown, when all other sports were in complete shutdown and limbo, didn't know what was going on. UFC was holding it down. I think their level of popularity grew, ridiculously last year because of that. Nobody could watch anything else. I was like, I guess I gotta watch UFC this weekend. And UFC, man, keep an eye on them. I guess, to answer your question about change, um, the level of competition is dramatic. The UFC's talent pool is dramatically different. You know, in the 90s when they started off, they're having Big Billy from the bar that could kick everybody's ass fighting this jiu-jitsu guy from Brazil, and the jiu-jitsu guy is kicking his ass. So it's like, okay, what else can we find? Nowadays it's like everybody knows jiu-jitsu, everybody knows kickboxing and Muay Thai, you know, traditional boxing and wrestling. And it's crazy because the UFC can go to Africa and put on just an, you know, African card, all African fighters. They couldn't do that shit even maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So the talent pool is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Africa. Obviously, there's so many talented or even champion African UFC fighters. But do you see any reason why that is? Like why they're doing so well?
Joe Rogan just interviewed the heavyweight champion of the UFC, newly crowned UFC champion, Francis Ngannou. He came from Cambodia, I think, and tried to get to France, and he went through Spain and France, and went through this crazy ass journey so he could be a boxer. Ended up doing MMA, but they don't have shit. It's like, hey man, I don't have shit. I haven't eaten for a few days. I'm gonna fucking die. I know how to throw my hands. I'm gonna fight for my fucking life right now. That's the difference. That's like what I said, the difference between people that do this shit and me that likes to train. Some parts of Africa and a lot of these guys are fighting for pride, fighting for money, fighting to eat. So they have that fire, that burning desire to not let anybody get in their path to victory. They're trying to feed their families, you know, so there's a lot of shit on the line for these guys.
Yeah. Do you think that's part of the Conor McGregor's thing right now? Is he just, if you hear a story like he came from nothing and he was so successful early on, and now it's kind of like he might have backed off a little bit. You know, he has all this money. He doesn't even need to fight anymore. He has his whiskey, he has all his other, you know, stuff going on. Do you think that's part of his thing? Is this he's not fighting for his life anymore?
Yeah, for sure. And that octagon rust is real, man. I don't give a damn who you are. If Conor McGregor, when he beat Dustin Poirier the first time, he Conor fought a couple more times, then he fought Floyd, got all that money. He was like, dude, I just got $100 million from this Floyd fight. I'm making $5 million per fight for the UFC. I'm taking some time off. Dustin Poirier and everybody else are still chasing that hunger, chasing that $100 million. They've been fighting for their lives since he took time off. Hell yeah, that plays a big part, man. If you want this, you have guys that are training daily for hours and hours and hours. You can't go out and sell your whiskey for 2, 3 years and expect to be the best.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. I think kind of part of what you said about you have guys up at a different level and you just like to do it to train. I think this I think UFC is one thing you watch, and if you don't train it, and I don't train it, and I want to start training it because I can kind of understand it, you don't understand the talent level difference that there is. You just see two people out there fighting, and they're so good that they don't make like they don't have that talent disparity to where one person just looks like, oh my god, I can't believe they're that good. So you don't understand kind of the talent they have. I feel like it's one of those sports that's a little bit on its own in that way. I don't think people kind of grasp the true ability of those athletes.
Yeah, definitely. You you definitely have to have an understanding. Like, say for instance, you have Mary and Joe, they come over to my house, we're watching UFC, they've never seen it before. Say you got two jujitsu guys, masters, in the entire fight, 3 rounds, 5 minutes rounds each. So 15-minute fight. And they're on the ground and they're constantly countering each other. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is absolutely amazing, dude. They can't, it's like a perfect chess game. They just can't get the better of each other. They're trying, they're moving, but every counter has a counter. Other end, Mary and Joe are like, man, these dudes have been laying on top of each other for 15 minutes. I'm never going to watch this shit again.
Yeah.
So there's different levels to it for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely it's a interesting sport, and you have to have a little bit of of knowledge to appreciate it, a little bit of experience in it. But yeah, man, I wish I could stay on longer, but I really do appreciate you coming on and just sharing a little bit about what you love today.
Yeah, man. No, it was an honor. I really appreciate you, letting me get on, and I look forward to talking to you again and getting you on my show sometime too.
Absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun. I definitely, like I said, I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff.
Hell yeah. You mind if I let the people know where to check me out?
Yeah, definitely do it.
All right, appreciate it. Hey, everybody, if you appreciate what I was talking about, the smack I was talking, make sure you follow me, Talk Smack with Mac, no spaces, on YouTube, on Instagram, and on all streaming podcast platforms. Check me out.